So I made this big jump of getting a job in the US. But one thing that I didn't consider when I was making that jump was a US work visa. What the heck was that, anyways? So, for my friends who don't have to worry about an additional work visa, this podcast you may not be too interested in. But if you're Canadian and you're interested in working in the US, this is going to be interesting for you because I'll be sharing all my tips. So getting a job is not an easy thing. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a lot of failures. Now, this entire process gets way more challenging when you're a non-US citizen applying for a US job. Because after you get that offer, you have to be approved by the Customs Border Officer for a US work visa. So this is going to be catered more towards Canadians. So if you are Canadian and you're looking for a job in the US, you should be applying for something called the TN visa. Don't apply to the H-1B visa. Trust me, the TN is way easier. So the TN visa is only for certain jobs that fall within specific categories. For example, for business students, some common ones are the economics category, the mathematics category, or the consulting category. So first things first, look at those jobs. They're all available online and find which one's best for you. The one I ended up going with was a management consulting visa. So first tip, when you're applying for a job, apply as if you are an American citizen. Don't try to find all these ways to tell them that you're Canadian. Because if you do, and they notice that in the application, you're automatically going to get filtered out. You're not going to be given a chance. So apply as if you're an American citizen at first. Obviously, if they ask a very blatant question like, are you an American citizen? Don't lie on those applications. In that case, say that you're not. But for a lot of the questions, try not to explicitly say or go out of your way to mention that you're not American. So tip number 2. Let's assume that you had a great resume, you got past that first round of the application stage, and now you're having your first phone interview. This is where you tell them that you're a Canadian citizen. But there's a very deliberate way for you to do this. So start off the call as if you would any other interview call, and really try to show yourself and prove your value during that first portion of the call. Now at the very end of the call, you should tell them that you require a TN visa. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, you want to at least have some time to get a genuine good impression on them without them having any bias of you being a non-American citizen. But at the same time, some companies just will not hire you no matter how great of a candidate you are just because you're not American. So you don't want to continue to go on to round 2, 3, 4 of the interview stage if they were not going to hire you in the first place. So have that first call. At the very end, let them know that you do need a TN visa. So here's a trick. Not all US recruiters know what the TN visa is. In fact, most of them are going to assume that it's the H-1B visa, which is much, much harder. So when you tell them that you need the TN visa, there are 3 things that you need to tell them. Number 1, tell them that it's only approximately $50, which you can cover. So there's actually no expense to the company. Number 2, the things that you need for the TN application is actually very simple. Simple enough that even you can draft it. Really, the only thing that you need from your employer side is an offer letter and for them to actually sign something. And I'll get to that in a sec. And number 3, the process is super quick. It literally happens as you're crossing the US border. So unlike most visas, it's not going to take weeks or months for you to get an answer. At the end of the day, what you're trying to convince them in this first call is, number 1, you are a super qualified and valuable candidate. And number 2, the TN visa is a special visa for Canadians that is super easy. So make sure to convey that to them, and hopefully you get the company excited enough to help you get this visa. So now let's say that you got the job and the company is okay to sponsor you. What do you need to bring to the border to actually get your TN visa? So I heard people bring different kinds of documents to the border, but for me, I brought 6 things. So number 1, it's my resume, my job description of the new company that I'm going to, my offer letter from that company, and from my university, my diploma and my official transcript. Now these 5 are a little bit easier, but the 6th one is the TN letter. But the TN letter is a little more challenging. It's essentially a document that shows exactly what you'll be doing in the company, a little bit of background on the company itself, and why you deserve to get a TN visa to work at this company. Now there's 2 ways to go about doing this. If possible, try to get a lawyer to actually draft this for you. They obviously know it the best. That was the case for my company where they had a lawyer draft one for me. Now, if your company is not willing to get a lawyer for you, or if you don't have the money to spend on one, you can technically draft it yourself. Feel free to search up TN letters online, Google search it. I'll also be talking about an online community for the TN visa where you can actually ask around to get their thoughts as well. Again, the preference is to have a lawyer actually do it for you, but worst comes to worst, this is still an option. You do have to make sure though that someone in your new company actually signs your TN letter with blue ink pen. So one more thing that you have to be very careful of when you're crossing that border to get the visa is that everything has to match. And what I mean by that is the new job that you're going to, as well as your previous job, as well as your education, everything has to line up. For example, when I graduated university, my specialization was in marketing. The first job that I had outside of university was in product marketing. And now going into this new job, I applied under the management consulting visa with the story that I'm going to be consulting for marketing related subjects. So that's where the story of, hey, my education, my previous experience, and then the new role that I'm going to have in America is all going to line up. And I have the experience and background to back it up. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that the border officers may not know the details of your field. For example, I've heard stories where some people got rejected because their education said data engineering, but then their new job, the title said data scientist. So if you can, do your best to make sure that even the names of all your titles line up. This way, it makes the job of the border officer that much easier. So as I mentioned before, there's actually a community of people who are trying to get the TN visa. They post questions, they help each other out. I highly recommend it. And this is a Facebook group actually called Canadian Economists on TN Support Group. Now, based on the name, it sounds like it's just for people getting the economy visa, but there's actually a lot of people posting about various other kinds, primarily ones that are business related. So you'll see a few on management consulting, etc. And I highly recommend you to just join the group, read through some of the other posts that were there, and if you have a question, just simply post it. Everyone's super nice, and I guarantee that at least someone will help you out, and this will make the process a lot easier. So I had the job offer, I had all the paperwork for the TN visa, and at this point I had flown to Vancouver and was nervously prepping myself to face the border officer. Okay. Here we go. Okay, I'm at the airport right now. I'm about to check into my flight going back to San Francisco, and this time I'm going to be applying for the TN visa. And honestly, I'm a little nervous because I think it really depends on who the immigration officer is, and if he's mean, he could actually ban me from re-entering the US for a while, so really hoping this goes well. It was funny though because the TN visa is not a super common thing. I even asked one of the people working there, where do I go to apply, and she just had no idea. No, carry on. And I also wanted to apply for the TN visa as well.
Oh,
do I do anything here?
I don't need to do it here, no. Maybe in the information booth
Okay.
I don't, yeah, I'm not sure.
You don't know if it's before or after this either?
I have no idea.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Now, this is where you'll probably have the most toughest part in this process, and it is the interview that the border officer will give you. Now, I don't remember every single question, but a couple common ones were, what are some of the day-to-day activities in this new job? What makes you qualified to do this job? And they'll basically ask you all these questions, whether face-to-face or through a pen and paper, almost like you're writing an exam. From my experience, I actually got a mix of both, so just be prepared for whatever the border officer gives you. One major thing to keep in mind is that they may ask you, how long do you plan to stay or work in the US? Whatever you say, you cannot say anything greater than 3 years. The TN visa is meant to be a temporary work visa for a maximum of 3 years. So if the border officer senses that you have an intention to stay longer than that, then they could actually just reject you on the spot. So when they asked me, I said I'm only planning to work here for 3 years and then go back to Canada afterwards. So basically, know the visa really, really well, know your job really, really well, and prepare yourself with potential questions by either searching online or asking in the Facebook group. So I just came out of US Customs and Border Protection, and I got it. I got the TN visa. Oh my god, they were super nice about it, and they gave me the TN visa. I'm still like shaking right now because I was so nervous. I thought I would have to go back, book an Airbnb, book another flight, delay my start date and all that stuff. And man, I feel so relieved right now. The fact that I went to the US, got a job, and got the TN visa, it's a really good feeling. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I got the TN visa. Now, it does sound like there are a few ways to get it, however, this was just my experience. If you want to get the TN visa to work in the US, or if you know someone else that wants to, please share this video. I'd really appreciate it. It'd also be great if you subscribe and listen to my next few episodes. I got some really awesome content coming out, so looking forward to seeing you then. Thanks.